Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this CITA regional event for the Western region. My name is David Bourke. I'll be chairing today's events. In a moment, I'll go through the order of things with you. So first of all, welcome to CITA's regional event. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Arup and Diatech. I'd also like to thank all our speakers across the week. It's been going very well so far. Today's event, myself, David Bourke, I'm a lecturer in BIM in GMIT. I'm going to give you a little update on what's happening in the digital construction space within GMIT and a few other little bits. Apologies. Next up then we'll have Gary Hughes. He's a BIM manager with John Paul Construction. He's going to talk to you about remote site tracking and taking the site back to the office. Then we're going to have Gallagher and Connie Shiel from DFM Systems. They're going to talk to you about extracting COBie data from IFC files from Project Handover Files. And lastly, we have Animesh Sourabh, who's going to, from MagiCAD. He's an account manager with MagiCAD. He's going to talk to us about connected construction, improved visibility, collaboration, performance, and safety for all project participants. We'll have a Q&A session at the end, but feel free in the meantime to enter any questions you have into the chat function. I will be keeping an eye on that throughout the presentation, okay? But as I say, we'll have a session at the end for questions. Okay, so moving on, so a little bit about myself. My name is David Bourke. I am a lecturer in BIM here in GMIT. I've been full-time here now for the past 18 months or so. Previously, I've been a part-time lecturer here, and I'd also been with Malachy Walsh and Partners in Limerick. I have about 20 years experience in the construction industry as a CAD/BIM technician, and then later on in my career in industry as a deputy BIM manager. So a little bit about what's going on in GMIT at the moment. So one very big piece of news is we recently were awarded the Sunday Times Institute of Technology of the Year for 2022. This is our fourth time receiving this award, and it's the last time this award will be awarded because we are now all turning into technical universities, so we will be the perpetual holders of that title. So we're very happy with that. So something that fed into that was, our TU designation approval, which I'll come to in a minute, with some academic restructuring, collaboration with business and industry and so on. And it all has made for this award to be presented once again. So I touched on it there. We're now, we've been approved to be designated as a technical university along with our partners in Letterkenny IT and IT Sligo. So from January, we will be a new technological university. At the moment, we're going under the moniker of Connacht Ulster Alliance. I don't think that's going to be the name going forward. I think they're working on a name at the moment. But once we're up and running as the, we'll call it the CUA for the moment, we will have about 600 academic staff and a student population of a little over 20,000. Apologies, we'll have 600 academic programs. We'll have a student population of about 20,000, and the academic staff will be a little over 2,200. So it will be quite a large organization. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with MTU and TUS and all that, so we are just following in that vein. A little bit of GMIT and COVID. So we're still, in a blending learning environment. I mostly teach on CAD modules, so we're pretty much back on campus for those. Other modules are still online. Some are fully online, some are 50-50. As I say, CAD modules are pretty much 90 to 100% back on campus. As a lot of you would be aware, CAD and Revit and software packages like that are much easier taught in person. So it's been great to get the students back in here with us so we can, see where they're at and what they're doing. So, students, they have remote access to labs, they're encouraged to have their own laptops and so on. And it's all been working pretty well. To be fair to the students, they've adapted very well to us. Just a little on some of our postgraduate programs. So we have a higher diploma in BIM running with the last 7 years, I think. So that's a very useful course. I myself am a graduate of it. It's fairly well established at this stage, and I'm sure a lot of you are aware of it. You can find out more information on the GMIT website. But some news that we have is we have a postgraduate diploma in building information management and digital construction. You also see it named elsewhere as postgraduate diploma in BIM and digital leadership. But it's currently going through the validation process, but we're nearly there with it, and it's scheduled to commence in January 2022. So it's 90% funded under the Human Capital Initiative, Pillar 1, and it'll be a year-long a year-long course. And then in January 2023, graduates of the postgraduate diploma can move on to the master's. And that could be, 12 months time, 12 months on from January. So that's 30% funded on the HCI Pillar 3, I believe. So that's something we're very excited about. Also, a number of projects we're involved in, the staff here in GMIT. We're involved in the Build Digital project, which was recently announced by the government. So it was established under Project 2040, and there's an investment of €2.5 million over 5 years. So aims to deliver increased digital adoption across the entire construction industry and built environment sector. So that's going to be done through 5 pillars: leadership and cultural change, standards, education and training, procurement, and sustainability and climate change. So where GMIT are involved there, I'm involved with the standards pillar, along with Barry McCauley of TU Dublin, and Mark Kelly of GMIT is involved in the sustainabilities pillar. You can see down the bottom there the partners. So we have TU Dublin, CITA, GMIT, MTU, DCU, and WIT. So there is the press release. So, Michael McGrath announced this there back in October, I believe. So it's all part of the wider push towards the digital construction and how the Irish market or the Irish construction sector is going to operate in this new digital environment. So it's very exciting. It'll really start to ramp up now in January when the project commences. So another initiative we're involved in is DASB, or the Digital Academy for Sustainable Built Environment. So essentially, it's a hub for upskilling, in green construction, circular economy, digital skills. The partners are the Technological University of the Shannon, ourselves, GMIT, Tipperary Energy Agency, and the Irish Green Buildings Council. More information can be found at dasb.ie. So it's aimed towards architects, engineers, building surveyors, craft workers, technologists, and courses on offer. There's a MSc in Built Environment Regulation, there's a certificate in fire safety, there's NZEP training, there is BIM with Revit Architecture, BIM with Revit MEP, and that's just 4 of them. There's a couple of dozen programs there. So if it is an area you're interested in, I would suggest that you check out dasb.ie. And finally, we're involved with World Skills. So if you're familiar with World Skills, it's a biannual event that's held all over the world, and it's for trades, traditionally for trades and skills like that. Whereas in the last couple of years, they've brought in software engineering and BIM. And in Baku, I believe it was, Kazan 2 years ago, an Irish team won the BIM award. So in partnership with Autodesk, one of our lecturers here, Tommy Coyne, is developing a similar program for AutoCAD Civil 3D. And first of all, it's going to be rolled out at the National World Skills event here in Ireland, which is run every year. And in 2023, it's going to be held in Lyon in France. And we're hoping that it'll be approved then for use in the next World Skills event, which will be 2 years later. So that's, some of the things we're involved in. There's our BIM team. So you can see we've quite an extensive group of people with a lot of experience in industry and in education in the area of BIM. So that's everything from GMIT. So I'm going to hand over now to Gary Hughes of John Paul Construction. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, David.
Okay.
You can hear me there okay?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Gary.
And I'll just share my screen now. So just check now, my screen is coming up for you there, guys. Okay, so just to introduce myself, I'm Gary Hughes. I'm a BIM manager here with John Paul Construction, the main contractor here in Ireland, along with Carol Corcoran is the other BIM manager here with us today. Not today now, but he's with us in the company. And today I just want to talk about the workflows and the softwares that we're using to monitor, review and track progress on site remotely. So how we can provide access to the site without physically actually having to visit the site. So JPC began to look at the options for this back in 2018 and 2019. Then the pandemic struck, and this accelerated our implementation because obviously we were restricted in the numbers we could have on site, and it just made sense for us to be able to try and provide access to staff and to engineers and people for site walks without actually having to visit the site. So just flick on here now. So most of this presentation will be about remote site tracking. We use a software called OpenSpace, which is a 3D image capturing. It allows you to review 3D images across time, and you can also compare it with a 3D model. The as-built verification, I'm not going to spend too much on it. People are familiar with point clouds or laser scans. They've come across it before. It's been around for a while, but we're using a very good software called Verity, which allows you to use AI to automatically run a check against the point cloud against the actual model. And then I'm going to just flip it a little bit on its head and talk about how we actually put the model into the hands of the people out on site. So all our engineers and everyone, anyone who wants access to it can get access to the model through Dalux Viewer. And then at the very end, and I'm just going to have a really quick look at where we're planning on going in the future with these types of softwares, and in particular with AI and how we can automate progress tracking on site. So just to get on to remote site viewing then, OpenSpace is the software package that we're using. We brought it in on a really large pharmaceutical project. I think we were bringing it in just at the tail end of 2019 as a trial, but then we escalated it up then in early 2020 with when the pandemic struck. But essentially it's a little helmet mounted camera. Junior engineers who we used to have doing the sites, but they just walk the site. They don't have to do anything. They just, I think at the very start, they just pin their location onto the plan. It does a walk around the site. It maps your route against a plan that you've uploaded, and then you can capture 3D views, and you can also capture or compare it to the model. So I just want to flick on here now to navigation. So if I just flick back aside, so whoever the person is goes out and does their walk, and that maps their walk in this green line. Wherever they walk, it gets mapped across the plan of the building. It's really simple and intuitive to use. Really, from a capture point of view, you don't have to really do much. You just set off on your walk, and the software does it for you. It's really quick and easy. It allows clear visibility to all, and it's a really excellent tool for coordination meetings. So I just have a really short little video clip here to just show you how it works. So if you see here, once the capture is caught, you can just click on anywhere on that green line, and it'll drop you into that location in the model and the 3D capture. And those little blue circles, then you can navigate through. So everywhere there's a blue circle, there's a 3D image captured at that point. So it's really great for being able to jump in remotely from anywhere in the world and just have a look at what is the current state on site. We used it in coordination meetings if we were trying to, coordination on this particular job was ongoing in tandem with the install. So a lot of the HVAC units were going in, but we were still coordinating the process pipework. So it was great because we could just jump in a meeting, see what's been installed on site if we were trying to route a new pipe or whatever. And really did work out excellent. The next item I just want to mention here now is the time comparison feature that's available in OpenSpace. So as you build up those walks, we used to do them pretty regularly. I think we used to do 2 or 3 a week, maybe every second day or so. So you build up a record over time of all these 3D images. So if you notice down the bottom here, you can get a little split screen going, and you have your date on one side here. This one is from the 29th of April in 2019, and this one is from January 2020. So you can clearly see there the progress that has happened over those couple of months. So it's a really comprehensive visual tracking of progress on site. Project managers found it really beneficial. They could just, even a view like this, just take a screenshot of it to paste it into a report, mark it up in Adobe. It didn't have to be too elaborate. It was just a means of getting the information across to people. It was also great for minor dispute resolution. If you might have an example where containment couldn't go in underneath a duct until the duct was installed or insulated or whatever, and you might have someone saying, oh, we didn't get to install it because the duct wasn't in there. But you can jump to that date and you can clearly show them, look, it was installed on that date, or it wasn't, and back them up or whatever. Both sides of it there now. So, and just as I mentioned there, it's just really easy to take a snip of it and put it into reports. So again, I have a very short little video that just shows how this works. And if you just watch down the bottom of the screen there, it's just flicking through dates, May 7th, May 21st. So it's just jumping through the dates, but you can bring up the split view and then go back into your calendar and pick a new date. So now you have a date from the 17th of April on one side and the 21st of May. Lock your 2 screens together, and as you rotate one, it'll rotate the other. So gives you a really great view there of what's progressed on site from one date to the next. Really, the project managers really found it very beneficial. And then following up from that, a little bit further on, you can actually compare all this to the model. So in the same way that it's mapping the route to the drawing, you can see the little plan map up here, it will also map it to the model for you. So anyone who's familiar with BIM 360 model viewers will be very familiar here because it uses the same engine from Autodesk. So you've got the same sort of view tools down here for your project browser and measurements and all the rest of it. Again, I have a little video in a second. But what's really great here, a project manager can go in and look and compare the two and go, okay, well, this is our target. This is where we should be when we're finished. So you can clearly see here, okay, there's supposed to be a shower and a wash station here that's not been installed. There's some panels here that haven't been installed that should be installed. But also what I found it really good for was as-builting at the end. So my previous role when I was working as a coordinator, you might be based on site a couple of days a week. And part of what I would be doing would be to physically out walking the site every couple of days to see, okay, is everything going in the way it should be installed or whatever. So in this instance, you can actually see that there's a conduit or something here installed on site that's not captured in the model. So that was something that we could flag up back to the Revit modelers, whoever, and get them to put that in. We'd make a call on the, obviously, certain conduits under, I think it was 50 mil, we didn't have to show, but if we felt it was needed, we could get it included into the model. So just to read it out there, the project managers have a really clear visibility of the remaining works to complete. And again, they can take a simple snip like this and just mark it up. I just did this very quickly in Adobe, but it gets the point across really, really quickly. It's really simple navigation tools familiar to anyone in BIM 360. If you've used BIM 360 model viewers, you'll be familiar with this here. And it's also great for non-power users. So just average people, anybody who wanted to just jump in there, somebody who wasn't all the time in the model, they could really see it. They could navigate the model, but in a way that's familiar to them. It's just like Google Maps. You can just jump around Google Street View and have a look around. So that was really beneficial as well. So I just flick on here now. Again, I have just a very short video just showing that model compare. So you can see there how it looks really like BIM 360's model viewer. And if you rotate in the 3D image, it rotates the model around with you. If you jump on any of the little circles, you'll navigate through, but it'll bring it in the model as well. Then you have the standard tools that BIM 360 offers. So you have your measurement tool in there. You can take your dimensions inside if you're planning something new or whatever. Model browser, so you can go in and hide and isolate items and pull up their parameters and all the rest of it. And again, as you rotate around, it's going to move the model with you. So just a really great way to compare progress on site, progress tracking, what should be done, what needs to be done. But even just as a model viewer, it's nearly more intuitive to anybody who's used Google Street View would be able to use it. So then just to wrap that section of it up then really, the key benefits we found for it was the ease of use in both the capture and the data use itself. So really easy to do those walks, just anybody can do it just with your helmet mounted camera. And then as you can see there in those few videos, it's really easy to navigate and jump around and interrogate both the 3D images and the model with it as well. So it definitely increases productivity in coordination meetings. So an example from sort of before we were using this, we would have a coordination meeting and maybe we're talking about a duct or a pipe that has to move, you know. Somebody will pipe up and go, well, I think half of that is installed already, or it's installed in the room next door or whatever. And invariably we'd have to then traipse down to site and go in and take some site views and images and measurements and all the rest of it. But here we could just jump straight in right then. As soon as somebody mentions it, we can just open up open space, jump into that area and have a little look. So we were able to close out a lot of queries and coordination issues like that really quickly. There was great visual progress tracking. Like I mentioned there, the PMs really found it useful for taking snips and just putting it in there. The simple modeling integration or interrogation is really easy. Definitely reduced the requirements for visits to sites. So this was really hammered home, I suppose, with the pandemic. So look, as an example, before that, when I was working as a coordinator, there was a short spell where I had one of my sites was in Donegal town, another one was in Longford, and another one was down in Limerick. Now I wasn't having to visit all the sites every week, but you were still on the road a lot, getting out to these sites for meetings and site visits and checking as-bills. So all of that could be done from the office now, and it just increased collaboration across the board. Really, it was just we found it a really, really beneficial tool. So that's really all of that for that side of things for open space. I didn't want it to seem too much like an advert for a software. It's more about the workflows that we were using it for, but I can recommend it. It was a really good tool. Not going to spend too long on these areas here, but the as-built for and using point clouds. Everybody, I'm sure, has seen point clouds now at this stage, been around for years, but we use them in two primary ways, really. You would a visual check. I actually find it just really, really beneficial to just go in and have a look. So you can see those two views there in front of us. The one on the right, top right there, you can see that those ducts are falling exactly in where the scan has picked them up. We actually used the scan in this case it was an existing building that we were coordinating these ducts through. So we actually had the scan there. If you can see it on the steelwork, we had that scan in place. So we were able to coordinate this duct through that tight space in the model, and it all worked out really good. But also visually here, you can obviously clearly see this didn't work out right. So the actual history here is the containment was never shown in the model, and then the electrical contractors fitted this containment here, and when the HVAC came, they obviously couldn't get it in. Now it was a relatively easy fix; they just dropped it beforehand. But again, it's a good way of seeing. Bringing the model, bringing the site back into the office so that you can compare it against the model. But the point I want to get onto really just briefly here is this little software package called Verity. I'm not going to spend too long on it, but essentially Verity allows you to take the point cloud into Navisworks, compare it against the NWD, set your tolerance, run one against the other, and it'll flag up what's out of tolerance. So you'll see here there's one item there out of tolerance, another item here. It's the same item, just what's really great about it actually is it pushes this information into Navisworks. So this is actually a snip from the properties in Navisworks here. So it actually pushes that in there for you. So you can go through it and click on items and see, is this in or out of tolerance? It'll create a nice report for you, color codes the model. I believe, I have to be honest here now, I haven't used the function yet, but I believe there is a function where you can tell it to move geometry inside Navisworks to align to the model. So for instance, if you found a pipe that was slightly out of tolerance, but it was generally agreed that you would leave it in that position on site, that it wasn't a problem, it wasn't causing any clashes or issues for anyone, Verity will update your model to show that correct location. So for any subsequent coordination after that, they'll be working to an actual as-built model. So point clouds and Verity, we use a lot. It's particularly good for structural elements. You can use it for HVAC and all that as well, but we've tended to use it mainly for structural elements. And now I just want to flip things around a little bit and just talk briefly about how we can push the model and the data back out to the people on the ground so that they can have use of all that great information and data and put it into their hands, because it's all well and good for us and the engineers sitting in offices and at desks to have all this information, but the real benefit is getting it out onto the ground. So we use a software here called Dalux or Deluxe. I'm never quite sure how to pronounce it properly. What you're looking at here on screen is just a little screen grab from the tablet from an iPad. So very similar to what we saw there in open space. You map the model to your plan drawings. You can open up a plan. You can drop yourself in. I'm not sure if it shows up great here, but there's a little green dot here and an orientation of where you're viewing. So this is in a set of apartments. Drops you straight into the model. This is a 3D view here that you can rotate around based on where you are here in the plan. But what's really great is you can go in here and you can interrogate this model. So in this instance, I've just clicked on the PowerPoint switch for the cooker here. It'll tell you there it's the cooker switch. You can click on this little eye and it'll bring up all your parameters here that you can roll through. And then you've all sorts of other tools here. You can hide items, you can make a section, you can, this little thing here that looks like a phone is actually, it's like a laser measuring system. So you can click and it'll bounce a laser virtually off elements and give you the dimensions of it. So we find it really, really useful. We're trying to push this onto all our sites because it's a real simple download. Gives you access to all this information in the field, and it also gives you access to the 2D drawings. If somebody just wants to access drawings, they can pull them up. The 3D view, as I've mentioned here, and then what's really cool about it is you can use the AR view. So this is another screen grab here. So it has a desktop function as well that you just go in through your browser now. It's not there is an app for it, but you can just go in through Google Chrome or whatever and view the model. You can rotate it around, section all these tools, take measurements and set up filters so you can hide and isolate items. But you can then also, there's a little photograph from the site here from the same area where you can superimpose the model over what's installed inside at the time. So this kitchen isn't actually there, that's the model of the kitchen shown up in a 3D view. And then we have some elements with the floor hidden here so you can see the HVAC down below the floor or whatever. It's really, really good. Really useful way to get it all out to the site teams. So just very briefly, again, one very short little video here. Just from one of our sites there, you can just see when you bring the tablet up there, you can see electrical panels on the left. This is where they're supposed to be going. Various services. Site engineers use this a lot. Two main things that I see they use it for. One is as-built verification again. So you can see here in this particular view, the items are in there, it's the right number, but they're not quite in the right places according to the model. In this case, we would just accept that and move on from it. But the other really useful tool is if you might find yourself sometimes out on site and there's a change required. So somebody will decide, oh, I need to move this duct over because we didn't allow for a hanger or something like that. Often they do that and move it on site, not realizing that further down the run, they're going to create 5 or 6 clashes with pipework or something. This way you can throw the model up in front of it and have a really quick look, and people will spot those likely clashes that are coming down the road with people, so and avoid them on site. So just to finish up then really briefly, the next stage that we're looking at here, and we're trialing it on a few sites at the moment, is to try and use AI to track progress on site. And we're trialing a software package called BuildDots. Open Space, actually, we just only last week realized that they're releasing a similar software package that we're going to look at as well in the future. But the one we're looking at the moment is BuildDots. And BuildDots allows you to upload your model into it. It works in the same way with a little camera mounted or helmet mounted camera, but you can also tie it to the program. So as the worker, as the team member walks around the site, it's scanning the site, taking images, and it can tell if a light switch is supposed to be installed on that date, or if it's supposed to happen in 2 weeks' time. So it can actually track the progress on site against the construction sequence and the construction program. And then it can give you out some really good metrics and reports saying what's on time, what's behind, what's ahead, or whatever. And we're hoping that this will be a real great way to increase productivity. We're trialing this on a big project with an awful lot of apartments on it. So to go around every apartment and check what's on date. The truth is, one or two guys going around doing that manually is going to take nearly as, by the time they're finished, it's probably been updated behind them. So it's really hard to get a really good live picture of it. And we're hoping this will do that, will give us that real quick live picture of the current status on site. And that's really it, guys. That's the end of my presentation there now. So I think I have a slide here saying any questions, but I think if you do have any questions, if you just type them into the chat there, put my name there in front of it, and I'll be able to answer them there at the end. So thanks for that, guys. It was really nice to be able to present you those workflows that we're using here now in JPC.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Gary. So as Gary said, if you want to type in a question into the chat, you can type Gary's name there, and we will open the floor up at the end for a few questions. So really interesting stuff, you know, with labour shortages and COVID and everything, to make, you know, site visits more efficient or unnecessary, I suppose, has huge beneficial impacts on the future of the industry. So we'll just keep rolling now, and I'm going to hand you over to Bobby Gallagher and Connie Shiel of DFM Systems. They're going to speak to us about extracting COBie data from IFC files from Project Handover Files. Okay, so Bobby and Connie, if you want to take it away there.
Thanks, David. And hello, everyone. My name is Bobby Gallagher, and I'm here today with Connie Shiels from DFM Systems to talk about extracting COBie data from IFC files for Project Handover. Just before I get into that, just a touch back to the presentation that Gary made there. The interesting thing is the Daleks viewer. We're going to be working on the same project, Gary, as yourself there, on that providing the handover files, and we've also used the Daleks viewer as an integration to be able to use it as a navigation of a 3D model and go directly to the digital safety files. So it's interesting to see the way the viewer can be used right away across construction and into handover as well. So just to get into the presentation itself, just to give you a bit of background about DFM Systems. We've been in business since 2004, providing initially handover documentation only on construction projects. Staff count of about 20 people, just under 20 at the moment. We're comprised of architects, building services engineers, building information managers, and software developers, developing software solutions for the construction industry, primarily around information management within that space. We're accredited to ISO 9001, and also I think probably the only company at the moment in our space accredited to ISO 19650 for information handover. To date, we've completed over 2,500 projects with a capital value in excess of 3.5 billion in capital value. Our scope on projects covers the full life cycle of a project, from the initial design and concept stage right through to handover and then on into demolition. And this can involve or include collecting and managing tens of thousands of documents and drawings across the life cycle of a project. The platforms that we've created covered the full life cycle, going from the CDE, new CDE that we've developed over the last 2 to 3 years, through to the site inspection app and tool, into the digital facilities manual or building manual, and then finishing up in operations with maintaining that as a live system that can be used during handover. And I'm just trying to move some stuff off my screen here. I'm moving the images around, but I'm covering up some bits and pieces of the screen, but I think I have it sorted there now. And through into the, as I said, into the operating and maintenance of the system, where we're keeping the digital building manual live with ongoing maintenance records. In all projects, we like to begin with the end in mind, and from our point of view, the end in mind is to provide the building owner with all of the information needed to safely operate and maintain his building. And we do that by collecting and assembling all the documentation needed for that, which includes drawings, data sheets, operating and maintenance manuals, user guides, and so on, all the testing and commissioning, to provide the owner with a single point in which to access all of that information. The topic of today was around COBie data, and just to give some high-level understanding of COBie data for anyone who's not familiar with it. It's an exchange schema that was developed back in 2007 by the US Army Corps, and the creator of it, the guy called Bill East, designed primarily to overcome the problem that the Army Corps had at the time of transferring paper-based records into a digital form, and by using an Excel spreadsheet scheme that was developed as part of the COBie specification. That information could be collected in digital form and then transferred into the client's maintenance system at the end of a project. A typical COBie spreadsheet consists of 20 tabs of information, where you're trying to set out over those 20 tabs the various different tables within a relational database that allows you to connect spaces with components and component types and documents and everything else. The main and primary intention of COBie is as an exchange format. It's not designed as a document management system or an app of any sort. It's intended purely as a means of exchanging information from one computer system to a different computer system, and then to try and overcome, as I said at the start, the waste associated with paper document exchanges. The end result of any collection of information for operating and maintenance is to answer the key questions that the maintenance facilities maintenance people would have at the operational stage of a project. They need to know where the equipment is, have they got the right information in terms of operating and maintaining that equipment, is it still under warranty, and when was the last maintained. And that information is what's collected through COBie. To present the information clearly to you, what we want to do today is present a case study of a project that we completed recently. Our client on the project was Stewart Construction in Galway. The overall building owner was the DAA, and the project was Dublin Airport Central. When we started to get involved in the project, it was good to find that the client in this case had a very clear information requirement set of documentation which set out exactly what he wanted delivered at the end of the project, in what format he wanted it delivered, and the various different types of information that were to be collected, including a very detailed naming convention where all the assets had to conform to a particular naming convention, which in turn slotted into the rest of the Dublin Airport campus. So all rooms had to be named and set out in a particular way as were the assets within the building itself. So in terms of what we delivered on the project to satisfy the client's requirements, following discussions and presentations at the start to the DAA at a very early stage, it was agreed that the asset information model that they required at the end could be delivered as a digital building manual with an integrated federated 3D model, all connected up to allow you navigate between documentation and items within the model itself. The system, our digital building manual, presents all of the information, all the operating and maintenance information on a project in an organized tree structure, as you can see on the left-hand side, and it's all generally organized by work package. And that's something that I'll touch on in a second in terms of the importance of organizing information in that way. So everything needed for any work package, regardless of what type of package it is, generally is available in one screen, where you've got an overview on the narrative page, all the documentation needed to support the work package, all the 2D drawings associated with that work package, and then finally any assets that form part of the components of that work package presented in a clear and defined way. On the project that we're talking about, the client had a particular requirement in relation to the assets. He wanted to be able to identify every asset, including the taps, for example, in the bathroom. He wanted to be able to identify every asset, the model number, manufacturer and the like, in terms of machine readable data, structured data, and also to be able to locate from within the safety file rather than just in the 3D model, to be able to locate or understand where each individual component, for example, where the tap, what bathroom the tap was located in. Now, in the case of the project we're talking about, there are over 10,000 individual items within the asset register or the object register to be able to give the client what he was looking for on the project. The asset register, as I said, includes both structured and unstructured data, and configured in such a way that from a 3D model, and we're using Scopebond in this case, but as I said earlier, we can use Dalux to give the very same functionality. From that model, to be able to select an item, in this case the tap, within the model, and then go directly from that into the safety file. The one thing I'm picking up here on the screen is to show you the difference between taking information, the raw information that would come from Revit, for example, which is a long string of text describing the tap. Once we process it and it goes through our system, it comes out as a clear English asset label, wall-mounted tap, for example, in this case. And then to be able to go from there straight into the safety file and see all the documentation in the safety file for that tap or component. So to give you a clearer understanding of how we went about achieving this and connecting the model up to the safety file, I'm going to pass over to Connie.
Okay, thank you, Bobby. Good afternoon, guys. Connie Shiel here from DFM, BIM lead at DFM Dublin. As I'm sure David will appreciate, I'm a previous graduate of GMIT, and congrats to GMIT on their latest achievements. and I believe they're doing extremely good work in BIM these days. So well done. Right, guys, as you will have seen in previous slides presented by Bobby, component names in particular used for creating 3D models are generally not FM user-friendly asset naming, right? Modelers often use BS 8541 for component library management. Different disciplines within any one project can also use custom parameters and the Rivet type mark component mark property for different purposes, making it quite challenging to extract information from the IFC files in a consistent manner. That's the key thing, consistency. DFM overcome this by requesting the use of DFM supplied share parameters, okay? 2 type and 2 instance parameters. This allows the modelers to continue to use their family names, sorry, their library names, I suppose, while also allocating each component a user-friendly asset name to match the equipment schedules created for their models. Okay. To facilitate this, DFM have created a set of SOPs and supporting guidance documents to ensure that all IFC files created on a project are created in a consistent manner. This means that DFM can easily check each individual IFC file to ensure it contains the correct information and that asset names are present for all required components. One key task in the extraction of IFC files from Rivet, again to facilitate consistency, is the creation of a dedicated 3D view, okay, created in Rivet with also a dedicated view template. That's crucial. This will facilitate consistent extraction of IFC files by anybody on the one project. DFM also requests that each IFC export utilizes the DFM custom property set export file, which facilitates the creation of a much smaller IFC file, because DFM don't need all the Rivet property sets for the safety file. As you will see in exporting IFC, there's so many settings, but DFM have documented the recommended settings for that. The inclusion of the DFM share parameters and the setting up of the dedicated IFC 3D view is all that is requested of the modeling team. So actually your work is quite simple and fast. Okay. Right, classification. Now, classification of components through the use of Celebri. This is where DFM work it. When DFM deliver a digital building manual, DFM aim to provide the asset owner with everything required for the operation and maintenance of the building asset, and not just the managed assets. Extracting a full list of components from the marked, which some of them will be marked in COBie, is very helpful in ensuring the DFM cover everything required for the building manual. Now, DFM use Celebri for the purpose, which is quite a powerful software application tool, and DFM have built into that Celebri classification scripts, right, which allows the identification of all components in the 3D model and the DFM express interest in, and those that DFM have no interest in. And you'll see this in the following slides now. So in this slide here, through this classification process, DFM can then visually check to review the components that the Celebri classification scripts have excluded, thus adjusting the classification if needed, and then continue on to the next one. Similarly, DFM can check the components identified as relevant to the building model and adjust the classification as required, which is vital. Now, in this view, you will see a slide presented where DFM use Celebri to classify components now by work package. Okay, this comes from another important shortcoming that DFM have experienced when using IFC files exported from Rivet. This is a system generally Rivet does not handle systems as DFM require it to. So DFM want to deliver all of the information in the building manual organized by work package. Okay, that's the key thing there, work package. So continuing on from that then, Here you will see the capability of allowing DFM to visually check all the components that are part of, in this instance here, general and emergency lighting systems, right? And it's one single system, rather than, God knows, in some situations, hundreds of smaller systems that will come from Rivet, okay? Once DFM have classified the components by work package and asset name, etc., DFM then produce a takeoff in Celebri, which can in turn be imported into the DFM building manual, creating a mirror of components within the object register. Okay. Now this takeoff, you can see here on screen, produces an Excel file containing all of the Rivet IFC model data, together with both the Rivet element ID and the Rivet, or sorry, the IFC GUID, which can then form the bridge between the 3D model and the building manual. And then to follow on from that, the information is imported into DFM and enriched with the O&M data, as you will see on screen there, right? Then DFM can then rebuild the IFC file from within DFM to include that additional information. There's quite a system going on there in the background of all of that, which of course you can't see live. DFM can also create an Excel spreadsheet with the updated information, and this can then be used with the assistance of Rivet plugins such as, God knows, DI routes to update the Rivet models. So you're re-exporting it back into your Rivet model. Okay, thank you guys. I'll hand you back to Bobby for a closeout.
Okay, just in terms of summary, one of the main cornerstones of the new information standard, ISO 19650, is that we end up with and always use a single source of truth on any construction project or any handover project. We don't believe that you can have a single source of truth if information is stored in two places, and that is the case in a lot of situations where you're trying to overload a Revit model with operating and maintenance information. As we see at the very front slide, the comment from Bill East, the creator of COBie, was that the information needed by operating and maintenance in many cases goes far beyond the geometry information that's needed in a Revit file. So we believe by combining either Revit or in this case an open source using IFC files plus the digital building manual, using the IFC files for geometry and the digital building manual for data, that in our view is providing a single source of truth. It also provides a single place where information can be updated if information requirements change, as in the case of the project we're talking about. Halfway through the project, the client moved from one CMMS system to another, and the consequence of that was that rooms and asset names needed to be adjusted. That would have been a mammoth task if we were trying to go back through cut sheets and everything else to try and do that within the model itself. But by relying on the data sitting inside a digital building manual, which can be edited by anyone and not purely Revit modelers, we were able to overcome that restriction or that impact on the project itself. So that's it from our end, and I'd like to thank you for your attention during this, and look forward to any questions you might have at the end of the presentation by everyone. Thank you.
Great stuff. Thank you, guys. There are a couple of questions in chat, but I think we might come back to those in the Q&A, and we'll just move on. Excuse me. So next up, we have Animesh Sourabh. He's an accounts manager with MagiCAD, and Animesh is going to talk to us about connected construction, improving visibility, collaboration, performance, and safety for all project participants. So I'll just hand over to Animesh now.
Thanks, David. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Gary, absolutely loved your presentation, and Bobby and Connie, great work with what you're doing at DFM Systems there. The only thing that I was telling myself, the question that I was asking myself, was, should I have done my presentation first? And that would have led straight into Gary and Bobby and Connie's presentation, because that would have been so much better. But I'll try. I'll see what I can do at my end. So my name is Animesh. I work as an account manager at MagiCAD. For those of who don't know about MagiCAD or Glodon, we provide digital construction solutions to contractors and subcontractors in the domains of takeoff, estimating, and on-site construction management. So let me start with my presentation. What I'll do is that I will start with a piece of stat here. So it says here where construction teams spend and lose time. So this is from a research that was commissioned in 2018, but it's still quite relevant in terms of where we are with where we are with on-site, where we are with construction workers using their time. So if you look at the top, it says optimal activities, and if you look at the bottom, it says non-optimal activities. So as a result of this research, what came out is that construction workers spend about 35% of their time in non-optimal activities, some of which is spent on things like looking for right project data or information, and or conflict resolution, and or dealing with mistakes or rework. So that's quite astounding when you think about the amount of time that is spent on these non-productive activities. Now, time spent is great, but what about the costs associated with these non-productive activities? So again, this research came up with some numbers. Now, if you look at the data, it's a bit dated from 2018, but what's important here is the percentage. So for example, whatever the construction output, if you look at the cost of non-productive and non-optimal activities, it stands at around 13 to 14% of your construction output. So if you think about a project, and if you're spending 13 to 14% of your project costs in these activities, then you're losing out so much. And I'm hoping things would have changed since 2018, but we don't have the numbers from 2021 for now. Now, there are a few things that form these, that are a part of these non-productive activities. One of them happens to be rework. And you look at these numbers here, these are the rework costs across 3 different regions. But the attribution to poor data in communication leading to rework is anywhere in the range of 50 to 60%. Now, those are crazy numbers. So what this data is saying is that most of the rework is happening as a result of lack of data or availability of data, but poor data or lack of communication. So just astounding numbers, as I said. Now, looking at some data, particularly for UK, and this is from an organization called Get It Right Initiative, where we participate in their technology working group. What they are saying is, if you think about rework or think about errors in construction, the direct costs are around the mark of 5%. But if you look at indirect costs, that's around 7%. So 5 plus 7, that's 12% cost attributed to errors caused in construction. And when you think about a construction project, the numbers that I had, the margins are anywhere in the range of 3 to 5%. So if you're making 3 to 5% as profit, and if you're losing about, let's say, 5 to 12% in errors and rework, then it doesn't make any business sense at all. So you look at all these, you look at the non-productive activities, you look at the cost impacts of these non-productive activities, you look at the role of data, role of communication in all of this. So what you come to conclude is that if you have poor data, that poor data leads to poor communication, and which then means that it leads to poor results. So poor results for the project, poor results for the contractors, the subcontractors, the workers associated with the project, and thereafter poor results for the clients who get a project or a building which is not performing at par. So poor data leads to poor communication, which then leads to poor results. So what is connected construction, and how can it help us overcome some of these challenges? So in a report commissioned by Deloitte, they define connected construction as an ecosystem of connected job sites, machines, and workers with the aim of improving or enhancing operational effectiveness and safety. Now, with some of the technologies that Gary showed us, things that Connie and Bobbie are talking about are part of or are elements of the concept of connected construction. So let's look at what connected construction looked like. I mean, this is, when I typed in connected construction Google, this is the image that I came up with. No surprise, as we're transitioning to a stage where your sites, your workers, your machines are connected, we'll see more of these images popping up in Google research. But this is what I found, and it kind of gives a good representation of what's happening. So you look at these workers, you look at these machines, you look at materials on site, and the idea is that all of this is connected, and which means that there's a dynamic, there's an always-on network that's providing a continuous flow of information or data, which can then help with running analysis on that data. So just thinking about some of the technologies that can help with connected construction, you've got robotics, you've got automation or AI, so the likes of BuildDots that Gary touched upon. 3D printing, we have seen examples of 3D printed buildings out there. Autonomous vehicles, the likes of Apple and some other technology providers are working this as we speak. Unmanned aerial vehicles, drones, we kind of all know about it, and we'll see more applications in the construction sector, I hope. And then there's virtual and augmented reality. So Gary touched upon a technology where you could see elements of augmented reality to help workers on site to see if the construction is going as planned. So these are some of the technologies, I mean, that are already in play, and and that we'll see more applications of in the coming future. Now, just thinking about some of the components of connected construction. Now, if I start with connected assets and equipment, it says, it is what it says. So you're connecting assets, you're connecting equipment with the idea of collating data from all of this and using that data to your advantage. Now, the fact that there's a continuous stream of data, what that helps you with is that you can plan your work dynamically. You're not planning your work in a way on a set of data that is old or that is outdated, because there's a constant stream of data in place. You can take action. Let's say if there's a safety incident has happened, you will know instantly, which means that you're better prepared to ensure that it doesn't go out of hand. There's real-time project visibility, know exactly as to how the project is progressing, and if for any reason, say the project is behind schedule, then what are some of the interventions that it can come up with. Collaboration, obviously, if assuming that data is there and data is all in one place, and that it's in a common data environment setup, which means that multiple people have access to that data, it will then lead to better discussions, better conversations, and better communication. And then at the end of it, data analytics. So for you to run any analysis, it's important to have or begin with some data. So these are some of the components of connected construction that can help you to generate better results for your projects. Now let's look at some of the benefits of connected construction. Now, you look at all these points and you intuitively, it's very intuitive. You kind of think, well, all of this actually makes sense. But even though people, when they know what the benefits are, they may not necessarily be in a position for a number of reasons to transition to connected construction stage. But just going through some of the benefits here quickly, database decision making, you have got data, which means you can base your decisions on that data. And if required, you can run some analytics on it to predict or to make predictions as to what will happen in the future. Cooperation, I've already talked about it. So data in a common place, common data environment, multiple people having access to that data leads to better conversations. Visibility, if you have a number of projects, number of sites that are operational, you know as to what the progress is, and if for any reason the projects are falling behind, then you kind of discover or kind of try to explore what those reasons are, and you take actions on them. Safety, it can also help with reducing health and safety incidents on site to ensure that workers are working in a safe environment. And if they find themselves in a situation, then you can take action quickly and on time. Scheduling and planning. So for things like materials and equipment, if they happen to be connected as well, so you can follow their movements, and for any reason, if there are any delays in the supply chain or there are any disruptions, then you can plan your projects, or you can move your project schedule as in line with that disruption. Now, well, that's all well and good. That's what I've explained to you what connected construction is, what are some of the components of it, what are some of the benefits of it, but what does that look like in terms of your bottom line? Now, this report by Deloitte came up with a few different numbers depending on what part of the project lifecycle you're in. So this report is saying that if you're in the design, financing, procurement stage, then you can look at unlocking efficiencies in the range of 10 to 30%. And that's a huge number if you think about it. Like for someone who is saving 20% of time, it means that he's saving a day's work in a week if you're able to do that. Now we're talking about construction today. So construction, it says it can help you reduce your cost by 5 to 10%. Now in one of the slides that I showed, I talked about the fact that rework costs or error costs can be anywhere in the range of 5 to 12%. So essentially, that's what the report is telling us, that if you're operating in a connected construction environment, you're giving yourself a chance to unlock those efficiencies that were not available previously. Operation and asset management are more relevant to what Connie and Bobby presented. It says 10 to 20% reduction operating costs, assuming all the data is in one place, assuming they're in the right order, they're labeled properly so that the likes of facility managers or energy managers have access to the right data at the right time. And then it's decommissioning, which the figure is around 5 to 10%. So all in all, if you look at the whole project life cycle with a connected construction approach, you're giving yourself a chance to unlock efficiencies all throughout and not just one part of your project. Now, what does the path to transition look like when you want to have a setup, when you want to have a connected construction setup? Now, the likes of John Paul, the likes of DFM, you guys are very, very evolved. But I'm talking about people, who look at these technologies, who understand the impact, who relate to the benefits. But when it comes to implementing these technologies in their setup, it can be quite overwhelming. So the idea is that you think big, as Bobby said, begin with the end in mind. So as long as you understand where you want to be or where you want to get to, then you can think about what technologies or processes you want to have in place. The next step is start small. So you don't want to start with like tons of technologies at one time. What you probably want to do is start with 1 or 2 technologies or processes, and then gradually find your way to a place where you're confident to implement that technology for all your projects on all your sites, and then gain advantages from it. So you're thinking big, you're starting small, and you're scaling fast, assuming that you succeed, or your pilots or your project implementation, your technology implementation succeeds, is a success. Now, again, as I said, like for companies out there who are already quite evolved, it's all well and good. They are in control. They know what technology they're interested in or what they want to implement. But for small, from regional contractors and subcontractors, some of the first steps could be as simple as adopting like a 3D or a BIM solution, just to give themselves a chance of having better communication, better discussions around their projects that they're running. Other thing could be switching from pen and paper to digital. So if you're doing all your work manually, if you're using pen and paper, then just by transitioning to like a digital technology, it could be a really simple, it doesn't have to be complicated technology. You're giving yourself a chance to take those baby steps to ensure that you're more confident about adopting a larger, more comprehensive technology further down the line. Again, if you think about document management, if you can find a solution, if you can find a way to keep all your documents in one place, where you also have a chance to give controls, or where you have a chance to give access to different people, or where you can ensure that you're providing the latest documents to the people working on site, then that's one way of getting there. That's one way of being in a getting to a situation where you can say that, yeah, we are taking steps towards to ensure that we end up in a connected construction stage. So things as simple as these, I know they don't sound fancy, but like these are the starting blocks of a setup where, as I said, you're more confident about using technology, changing your processes, and unlocking benefits that were not available in the past. And to end, digital transition or connected construction transition is not just a change in technology, it's also a change mindset. So as long as you understand why you're adopting a technology or why you want to have a connected construction setup and what are some of the benefits that you'll get from it, then you know that you're on the right path. So I'll end there. Thank you to everyone. Thank you for your patience, and thanks to CitA for giving me the opportunity for this presentation today. As I said, I just wish I'd started and then my presentation would have led into Gary's and Bobby and Connie's presentations.
Great stuff. Thank you, Animesh. Yeah, we could definitely see some common threads throughout the presentations there. I'm just a little conscious of time, and people needing to be places at 2 o'clock, and me needing to be out of the space that I'm in. So I'm just going to have a look at chat there, and we do have a number of questions. So I'll just get the ball rolling. So apologies a second now. So Alan Hoare has asked there, so for the lads in DFM, how does DFM navigate between the project supervisor design stage and the project supervisor construction stage process when these are separate roles and separate handovers?
Generally, work hand in glove with the project supervisor design stage. So on any project, the PSDP is generally responsible for coordinating the information input from the design team, and then for collecting the information from the main contractor, the PSCS, and all his subcontractors. And part of that role is the collating, if you like, of the digital safety file, or the safety file of the project. So the experience we have with most PSDPs is that if we're on the job, we're making their life easy, and they tend to accept and encourage that. The likes of AshView or Decon, Linesight, they would all see a value in us being involved on the job. From the PSCS point of view, the main contractor's point of view, we take the pain out of that collection process from his point of view, because the guys that we employ to build these safety files, as I said, are building services engineers and the like. So we're actually contacting all the suppliers and subcontractors on behalf of the main contractor to pull his information in. So it's a holistic approach, pulling everything together into one solution.
Great stuff, great stuff. And also, it's been asked there, would you guys prepare the IFC files yourselves, or do you prepare guides for the customers to prepare their own IFC files?
Bobby, I can come in on that one there, if you don't mind. No, we do not create we do not export the IFC files from the native software, because the IFC file is created anyhow to a certain degree in the background, but we provide the guidance on how to export that IFC file in a compatible manner with what has been agreed with our client or appointing party.
Okay.
If that somewhat answers that.
Yeah, I think it's not a case of you taking the design file and then running with it from there.
No, we do not take that responsibility whatsoever, no.
Yeah, great stuff.
But I think just to come in that the point of issuing that set of documentation out is that we can make sure that everyone that's exporting to IFC is exporting in a consistent way, and they're using the same shared coordinate system, they're using the same settings in terms of sending that information out to the IFC exporter.
Excellent. Yeah, I suppose that's a theme we've seen. Consistency, and quality of data is something that I suppose we can all agree is necessary. And so, if we have a few minutes left, if anybody wants to come in with any more questions, feel free. I believe you can. The attendees can unmute and ask a question, and if not, you can just type into the chat, and we'll see it there. Or even if any of the speakers would like to ask each other questions.
Yeah, I had a question for Gary, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Gary, I was just wondering, because you showed us a few different technologies today. Let's say if there was a new technology in the market that claims to do a better job as compared to some of the tech that you've got. Like, how do you go about it? How do you make a decision that you want to invest time and energy in terms of looking into new technology as such?
We're always looking at new technologies and what we can use. So Ray Blood is our head of digital construction, and then there's myself and Carl Corcoran as the two BIM managers, and then there's our coordinators down below that working with us. So every member of that team can bring a suggestion. If we hear something in a presentation like this, or if we see something online or on LinkedIn, we'll take it, we'll have a discussion about it, and if we feel it warrants looking at, we'll make contact. We'll try either trial it on a smaller project. Sometimes we might trial it in tandem with the software we're comparing it against, sometimes on the same project. Really depends, but we're always looking to try and see, what are the benefits and gains here. So if there's an opportunity to take on a new software package or just a new workflow, we're always open to do it, and we'll trial it in different ways. Really, it depends on the software and what we're trying to achieve, really.
Just following up on that question, would you also have discussions with different teams to ensure that they're struggling with anything, they can bring it to your notice, and then you can go about that's relevant technologies? That's
a big thing that we're trying to do more of, as well as and I try to. Dalux is a good example of this, of how we're trying to put the information and the models and the data that's available anyway into the hands of the guys on the ground, from junior engineers, QSs, site managers, project managers, because they all, when they take on a piece of software like that and get involved in it, each one will see a different benefit that even maybe I don't necessarily see, because I'm looking at it from my own side. So it's to try and get it out and get people involved as much as possible. Is one of the key things we try to do actually in John Paul, is try and push it out there to the wider team and to the extended subcontractors. Dalux is available across the board. It's JPC will put it up as available, but if you're the electrical engineer or you're whoever, anybody at all involved in the project, if you want access to it, you can have access to it. So.
And sorry, David, if I could come in there, just Alan Hoare here to you, Dublin, and see, just to thank Gary, Bobby, Connie, and Animesh for the presentations. But just back to Gary there for a second, and I did have an opportunity to see a preview of the presentation the other day. So, I presume this type of technology is changing behaviors on site. We're all hearing about the lack of labor and, and people on the ground. How much is this helping you with maybe a resource deficiency that you might have
Well, I suppose if you looked at open space there, and even sort of ignoring the labor shortage, there was sort of an enforced shortage on site in that you couldn't have as many people on site. I mean, a few of our projects, even during the first lockdown, remained open because of the foreign direct investment clause. You know, we were working for, so we had to stay running and still meet program and all the rest of it. So bringing in something like open space, it meant that, particularly with the project managers, that's who I found took it on the quickest, because they were able to keep an eye on the site even though they weren't visiting the site every day. So each individual, you know, each team, each project, each individual takes it on to varying degrees, and some people are not interested and don't pick it up, and other people do. So it's to try and make it as easy for the people who are maybe not so interested in picking it up to simplify all of this as much as possible. I mean, that's why I like to talk about things like, just take a simple snip with your snipping tool that everybody uses every day, mark it up in Adobe and send it out in an email. It's somewhat old school, but you're pulling all the benefits, or a lot of the benefits, from the software, and just making it democratic, making it easy for everyone to use and share. You know?
As you would say, it can quickly sort out those mini disputes or disagreements that you might have. The camera's there, the picture's there, it just sorts it out, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I found once you get over the first hurdle of people being a little bit shocked, oh my God, they can jump in and have a look at this site at any minute from anywhere, you know, the Big Brother thing. Once they get over that little hurdle, they come back and they're nearly coming to me then and, hey, is there any chance you could share your screen there and let's have a look at the site? I can't make it there today, but I need to look at something. And doing all these things is really beneficial.
I mean, my final comment is, I suppose, with fixed camera positions, that's one of the limitations, isn't it? That fixed in position and you can't see internally or...
Exactly. Well, we do use that, and we do use drones, and we do drone surveys, and all of that is happening as well. It's a whole other presentation, really. You know, it was just they have their limitations, they have their uses, their limitations. But I just found I didn't want this to be too much of an advert for open space. I'm not on commission or anything for open space, but it is a really useful tool. You know, it just the workflows that we're still developing out of it. You know, we're using it in different ways, or looking at using it in different ways in the future as well. You know.
Thank you.
No problem. You mentioned there, Alan. Sorry, one last one before you go. Just I saw in the questions there that Alan asked about blurring over people's faces or whatever. It's something I did actually mean to mention. It uses the AI function there to, you know, so anybody on site, if it picks up a face, it blurs it out. So there's no GDPR issues there at all. It blocks everyone out.
Excellent.
Thanks, Dave.
Great stuff. Yeah, I mean, if as I say, it's open there if anybody wants to come in with a few questions. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank all our speakers for their time. It's very much appreciated. You know, it's clear to see the Irish construction industry is moving in the right direction. You know, and facing challenges and meeting challenges and exceeding those challenges in a lot of cases. I'd also like to thank CITA for their organisation of this event across the week. It's been a great success so far from what I gather, and it's a great opportunity for all of us as construction professionals to come together and see where the industry is heading. So I'll make one last call. If there's any other questions, please speak up. If not, we'll leave it at that. Just I'm aware we're getting towards 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
David, I'll just pick up on one topic there. I think, Alan, I just spotted it there in the chat.
Sorry for hogging the chat there, guys.
Yeah, no problem. But the UK Building Regulations Advisory Committee report and how that might impact the collection of data and that. I think I see that there in the chat. Like, particularly in Ireland, I think myself anyways, legislation and regulations are the two key features of that.
Yeah.
And that's the background of that. And for something like that to be enabled in Ireland in particular, I'm sure, okay, there was of course a need in the background in the UK, but for something like that in Ireland, no, it would be quite a challenge, I think.
I think though, Connie, it's probably inevitable.
Yes.
Given the risk, you know, clients commissioning projects need to know that the right materials and products have been installed in the building, and they need to have all of that data like what you guys do in DFM, at their fingertips, because if there's ever a case or a claim, that's it, you have the information. So I think the Golden Thread report in the UK is a game changer.
Oh,
Absolute
yeah,
game
yeah.
changer.
Just
For
it
everyone, for all people, designers, the contractors, everyone.
Oh, it's certainly welcome, and I'm sure it's very welcome in the UK. And yeah, it'd be very interesting to see what could happen here.
Good. You can see.
Yep. Yep. Okay, Alan, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Okay.
David, for bringing up that.
No problem, no problem. That's what this event is for. Great stuff. Look, I think we will call it at that. And again, just a thank you to all the speakers. A thank you to everybody here who has attended. Hopefully, you'll take something away from today. And again, thanks to our sponsors, Arup and Diatech, and to CITA. And hopefully, we'll see each other soon. Maybe in person the next time.
Thanks, Dave.